Hello, I'm Nicholas Snow, and this is the Snowstorm on Sunday, a new weekly program from PromoHomo.TV. I hope this program becomes the quintessential go-to LGBTQ plus Sunday show. It's Oscar Sunday. It's March 10th, 2024. It is the beginning of daylight savings time, or daylight saving time to be more technical. We have an exciting lineup for today. It's all about saving democracy, folks. For just a little bit of housekeeping, I want everybody to know that if you are watching the show live and you make a comment or have a question, it may be featured on screen. I have the opportunity to put you on screen. I also want to invite you to become one of the PromoHomo.TV 1000. When I have 1,000 people around the world that give me $3 a month, I can quit the full-time job I work to support this activism and do more programming. Also, in this episode, by the end of this broadcast, I will be giving away a pair of tickets to the sold-out Red Dress Red party. They'll be given out during this episode. However, you can't win on LinkedIn. You can't win on Facebook. You have to be watching on the YouTube account, and you have to be logged into YouTube. So if you've tuned in specifically to win those tickets, you just go to youtube.com/PromoHomo.TV network/streams to enter the contest. So, democracy is at stake, and the great American democratic experience may fail. The task before us until November 2024 and beyond is to save democracy. Similar to your favorite political Sunday show on your favorite television network, the Snowstorm will take on the hottest headlines of the day, but we will go one step further. We take a position. We're unapologetically advocating to defeat Donald Trump and to prevent authoritarian rule and save democracy. And joining this Oscar Sunday premiere, I'm very excited to welcome Rich Weismann and Philip Hodges, who are co-founders of the Ibis Institute Group, which, quote, envisions a new paradigm for LGBTQ plus and potentially other Democratic candidates to win elections by utilizing comprehensive, data-driven, thoughtful, analytic, and disciplined techniques and practices available today in the business, both corporate and entrepreneurial and academic worlds, but not often found in traditional political campaigns. Appropriately, Ibis is the ancient Egyptian symbol of wisdom, knowledge, and communications. It was important for me to have these two gentlemen on the show because literally they're 1 degree of separation or 0 degrees of separation from the sorts of guests that I want to include every Sunday between now and November. This is the Snowstorm. PromoHomo.TV is all about empowering you, our communities, and our world. Shouting out to my media partners. Pink Media, amplifying PromoHomo.TV across the Twitterverse with their #ILoveGay campaign. GayDesertGuide.lgbt. And KGay 1065 Palm Springs, available worldwide. Ask your smart speaker to play KGAY. It's as simple as this. We will save our democracy in 2024, or we will watch the United States implode. I'm Nicholas Snow, and this crisis we face is why I have launched the Snowstorm, a nightly hot topics panel discussion show in which I will curate your social media comments into the show, and we will connect the conversation to action we can take to save America.
Watch the Snowstorm nightly at 6 p.m. Pacific at PromoHomo.TV.
So I haven't updated my opening yet. For the first 36 days of the year, literally every single night, the Snowstorm was live at 6. But now it's going to be every Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And that's just going to be, I just cannot broadcast a nightly show. But I'm really proud to broadcast this weekly show. And without further delay, let me welcome my guests to the broadcast, Rich Weismann and Philip Hodges. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
So, Rich, you're with me in sunny Palm Springs, and Philip is coming to us from his one of his homes in San Francisco. Philip, you're married to Scott Nevins, a philanthropist and activist and friend and entertainer, and
Yeah.
you two are definitely a power couple. And Rich Weismann is married to best-selling author J.D. Horn, and I'm single, so that's the end of the show, folks. Goodbye. No.
Nicholas, we can change that at the red dress party.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe the winner of
Exactly.
your competition is going to be someone you can have your eye on.
Oh, okay. And by the way, everyone, all three of us, we have tickets to the red dress. All three of us are already hooked up with tickets, so we won't be competing to win. But I want you to pay attention to that message on the screen, because I am giving away a pair of tickets on YouTube to that party by the end of this broadcast. But you cannot win if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. So go to YouTube. All right. So without further delay, I'm going to go to you, Rich. What exactly does Ibis do? And what role are you taking in LGBTQ politics?
Good question. We came about last summer. We were frustrated by watching quality LGBTQ candidates lose. Folks who should have won, who deserve to win, who represent our community and represent America and represent the future of America. And we watch them too often lose races. And so we kind of asked ourselves, why? And both Philip and I are data scientists. Philip is a physicist. I'm a statistician by training. And we felt that as we looked at the world from our corporate eyes, both of us are heavily involved in the corporate world with serious corporate professional experience, that this is not how companies organize themselves. That campaigns seem too often to be haphazard, seat of the pants, not based on research and analytics and data, and not using today's state-of-the-art marketing and communications and branding tools. And so how do we take those areas of expertise that we have coming from the corporate world and bring that to campaigns, to political campaigns for LGBTQ candidates? And so working with the LGBTQ Congressional Caucus, headed up by Richie Torres and Mark Takano, two wonderful Congress people. And they have a wonderful board of directors, including Maxine Waters and Zoe Lofgren and others. They asked us to put together a group, which we then named the Ibis Group Institute, of people like us who can bring that kind of expertise to U.S. congressional campaigns, specifically for LGBTQ candidates. And so we did that. And we put together a wonderful team of people who've done everything from branding Microsoft and AT&T Wireless and major financial institutions, people with deep corporate backgrounds, people with expertise in 8 specific areas: strategic development and planning, data analytics, market research, campaign technology, brand marketing, advertising, communications, direct, and measurement. And we created these 8 service categories, if you will, and develop ways in which we can use the learnings we have from the academic world. We're all very high academic folk, and corporate world. We all have deep experience in the corporate world, and bring that to campaigns. And that was the idea. Let's raise the bar in how campaigns are run. We're all volunteers. None of us makes a dime, nor do we want to. None of us have political ambitions. That's not part of the deal. None of us are looking for jobs. We're simply volunteering our time to help LGBTQ candidates win elections, and doing so in ways that typically are not found in the political world, but that are found in the corporate, entrepreneurial, and academic world. That was the idea. So we put together a wonderful team of people. We also have an advisory team. Those are political people, people who've run major campaigns like Anthony Mercurio, who was one of the key people in the Buttigieg campaign, Evan Wolfson, who ran the Freedom to Marry campaign, other kinds of people who've done wonderful things in the political world as our advisors. And then our leadership team, people who have that deep, deep background, academic, entrepreneurial, and corporate in those 8 service areas. And we're now working on 3 campaigns. We let the Equality PAC LGBTQ Congressional Caucus tell us which campaigns to work on. And we work closely with those folks in terms of designing, developing, and implementing campaigns that are far more sophisticated, far more technology-driven, research analytic-driven than is typically found in this arena.
Well, it's just really, really fantastic. You mentioned that you're volunteers and that you're not looking for jobs. Really, the antithesis is true. You help fund all of this important work, both of you, through your own philanthropy. So I just want to acknowledge and thank you for that. Philip, what would you like to add to the preliminary information that Rich has shared?
Yeah, I think Rich has said it very well. So yes, we do our own philanthropic work, but the real niche that we saw was that there is a lot of expertise in the corporate world and the academic world, which finds it hard to get into campaigns. If you are someone with, say, like a data science background or someone with marketing expertise, and you seek out a campaign in order to volunteer, many times you'll still end up writing postcards or going door to door. And what we wanted to create was this think tank / connector, which can take people with real expertise who can really move the needle in political campaigns and find a way to channel that expertise into helping, at this stage, LGBTQ Democrats get elected. Now we have bigger aspirations beyond that, but we have to start small, right? Like, let's use LGBTQ Democrats as sort of the test case for whether we can expand this idea more broadly.
So do either one of you have political ambitions?
Hell no.
Not yet.
I mean, I think Rich said this too, but like one of the criteria we think for being on our leadership team or being a volunteer is that we're not trying to build anyone's career here. This is, Rich and I are lucky enough, and our leadership committee are lucky enough to all have been successful in other avenues. What we share is not a desire to be politicians, but a desire to, as you put it, Nicholas, save democracy. We think there are serious structural issues. We're terrified of the amount of polarization that's happening in the political sphere. And we see this real niche. How do you save democracy? You have to do it in the middle, and you have to do it at the margins. We can't purely play a turn out the base game. The way you save democracy is by having strategies that nudge people who would vote red to vote blue, or independents who wouldn't show up to vote, voting blue and showing up to vote. And we see a lot of the existing political infrastructure is focused on turning out the base, or correctly focusing on policy and sort of what you're going to do once you're elected. We think there needs to be sort of more expertise in sort of nudging, figuring out how candidates appeal to non-ideological voters who you can't sort of influence with your stance on abortion or your stance on the environment. You have to appeal on a more visceral level. Like, I like this candidate, like, I can trust, seems very stable, seems non-emotional, seems to have my interests at heart. I like them. So this is the areas in which that excite us to get involved in, and we're helping our candidates.
On Super Tuesday, as I was watching the results come in, and as I was, looking at the success that Nikki Haley had in getting a really significant number of votes in a 2-person primary, it occurred to me that, we, as Democrats and as people who are supporting Biden for re-election, we cannot demonize Republicans. And it occurred to me that it's that group of Republicans that were voting for Nikki Haley that could help President Biden win. It's like the coalition is evolving, but it certainly includes them. Rich, Philip did a great job of sort of segueing into my question. How is your organization going to help democracy win?
We're going to do it candidate by candidate. And we're going to do it by building a model, if you will, on how to run campaigns in today's era. Most campaigns are run, or many are run, based on old models and old ways of doing things. They are what we call push strategies, which is just scream a lot, scream loudly, send out postcards, call people on the phone, hound them. Very much a used car salesman, if you will, QVC model of just scream loudly and people will vote, as opposed to a pull strategy, which is how do you develop a brand? How do you entice people to want to vote for you? How do you talk to people who are younger, maybe not be affiliated or are affiliated, but aren't incented enough to think in terms of getting out and voting and filling out their ballot? How do you pull them in rather than push? And a big piece of that is we have to stop squabbling. So many campaigns are about squabbling. And to the average voter, it looks like this, will the adults please quiet down and stop fighting with each other and just talk to me and give me a reason why I should be interested in participating and in voting. Particularly important when it comes to things like the Gen Z and millennial voter, where we see the turnout rates are abysmal for those folks. Why is it? Those two generations are the most educated generations we have ever seen in the United States. Baby boomers, as an example, have about a 20% level of college education, undergrad. That's not true of the younger generation. They're 50, 60%. Highly educated, highly involved in other parts of their lives, highly professional people, yet they're not voting. And they're not voting because we haven't given them a reason to vote. We scream at them to vote. We don't pull them in. We don't provide candidates who inspire. We don't provide campaigns that inspire. And so our job is to help people understand, help candidates in their campaigns understand, how do you do that? How do you develop a campaign that does that? How do you develop a campaign a la Google, the way Google operates, the way Apple operates, the way other companies operate in terms of bringing clients into their organizations? How do we do that when it comes to politics, and how do we do that for the Democrats? And so we're helping our candidates one by one develop strategy, overarching strategies, brand strategies, market segmentation strategies, and communication strategies, and then helping them to execute that so that we change those dynamics. So how are we going to do it? We're going to do it one campaign at a time. Now, we work exclusively with the newbies, if you will. These are first-time people running for Congress, LGBTQ throughout the nation, many of whom have very small budgets. So we have to help them figure out, how do you do this on a shoestring budget? You don't have millions of dollars. You have much smaller budgets. How do you do that effectively? And that's what we're doing, one campaign at a time.
Philip, what would you like to add?
Well, I want to sort of explore your point, which I thought was very good. Like, Nikki Haley has shown us, I think, that there is a constituency of pro-democracy Republican voters. And like, Democrats, therefore, kind of have a tension in how we save democracy, because what we do in order to win individual races may not be the sort of optimal strategy, like, globally for saving democracy. And what I mean by that is that we have the Electoral College, we have extensive gerrymandering, we have sort of 90+% of seats that are uncompetitive. And it often will lead to like low quality candidates and sort of more polarized partisan candidates, which is often the right thing, for example, the Democratic Party to do, is put your more sort of left-wing politicians, get your left-wing policy goals through with getting sort of more left-wing candidates sort of elected in non-competitive districts. But it leaves a very small number of competitive districts, which sort of is your opportunity to be bridge builders with the other side, sort of have messages that also appeal to independents and Republicans. And a thing we're excited about in Ibis is that we really are, where possible, trying to target candidates who sit in those purple districts. Like we actually have a few of them in the Coachella Valley, right? Almost all of the districts that we're voting in here are actually competitive and can swim between Republican and Democrat. That's actually not the case for a lot of voters. And again, that's one of the reasons for low turnout that we're seeing in this election.
And I'm
Well,
going to give an
go
example.
ahead,
If
Rich.
up in Oregon, one of the candidates with whom we're working, Eddie Morales. Very recently, Earl Blumenauer made the announcement that he was retiring from Congress. And so there was an open seat. And so we quickly, with the U.S. LGBTQ Congressional Caucus, said, let's get busy here. Let's see who we can find in that area that meets the criteria that makes that candidate winnable, an LGBTQ candidate who can join the caucus next year, but who fills all of the kinds of qualities that Philip was talking about. And so we worked with them in finding the right kind of candidate, and that was Eddie Morales, who is a wonderful young Latino immigrant LGBTQ candidate. And so we got behind his announcement, and we're now working very closely with him, and we hope to win. That's the goal, is to bring people like that into the equation. So it's starting at the beginning in candidate selection and working all the way through. But as Philip said, working with folks who have an appeal that is broad, that can bring in all kinds of people into the tent, not just a tiny fraction of the Democratic base.
Just so I don't forget to bring it up, before we went live, we were talking about the incredibly low voter turnout in Riverside County. And when we look at one of the recent election cycles, both Will Rollins and Christy Holstage lost their campaigns the last time by such a small number of votes. Very, very close campaigns. So, Philip, I was wondering if you would speak about the statistics in terms of recent voter turnout in Riverside County. Talk about how you feel this connects to other races throughout the country, and expand more on how we do bring more people into the process and engage them.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate news is it doesn't look great for Democrats in this primary. So just in Riverside County, we have, as of yesterday, I think about 350,000 votes counted, about 50,000 mail-in ballots still left for Riverside to count. Once that is done, we will probably have a turnout somewhere around 30% or maybe even slightly lower countywide. That is low. That is about the same level as the midterm primary turnout. And as you know, historically, general elections have more participation than midterms. So we're in a very low environment. There was, I think, in early stages after the vote, there was some Democrats getting excited about sort of a blue turnout wave, a blue tsunami. I remember someone saying, I think that hasn't materialized. And I think some people get confused about the way votes get counted by the county, where the early vote is consistently very much more blue than subsequent votes, which include sort of in-day counting and then late mail-in ballots. I think, what can we learn from this? I think structurally there are many things that cause low turnout. I think the things we talked about before, like gerrymandering, sort of the electoral college creating sort of uncompetitive spaces, is a big one. The extent of polarization, when both parties are talking to their bases, it leaves the middle ostracized. I think economic inequality, sort of some people just do not feel empowered. Voter disenfranchisement, I think like one party, in particular the Republicans, seems to have decided that low turnout is good for them. The evidence actually suggests that it's neither good nor bad, but certainly Republicans are desperate to make it harder to vote. So I think there's all these structural things. I think there's also candidate specific things, like who are the candidates that can sort of raise turnout in their districts. They are the ones that inspire. They're the ones that have a sort of a brand that glows. People understand innately what this person is going to do once they're in office. What are they going to achieve? Like, they're likable, they're inspirational. Like, we all know what they look like. They look like Barack Obama and some of those. Will Rollins has some of those characteristics too. And you do see him outperforming some of the other sort of local candidates. It's a little harder to see this election because he had a challenger, but Ken Calvert seems to be dramatically underperforming the registration of the electorate. In other words, like, there seem to be Republicans again who are switching to Will Rollins. So what do we do about this? I think individual candidates, the structural things are hard for individual candidates to fix, but individual candidates need to send messages that are positive, that are inspirational. They need to be careful about negative advertising, particularly negative advertising that is not consistent with who they're trying to be as a candidate. You're the bridge builder, and then suddenly you're attacking your opponent in a kind of vicious way. That's the kind of thing that turns voters off and causes them to sort of sit at home. But I agree, it's a problem that we're all gonna have to fix. The Trump general elections were actually pretty high turnout. It was like 81%, I think, in Riverside County. But let's be honest, we're not going to see that level of turnout this general election unless something dramatically changes.
And if I may add to that, one of the things that we do talk about with our candidates is to understand the difference between what we call the 4 buckets. And this is where brand plays a critical role in defining a candidate and inspiring people to vote. Because so many candidates run against their opponent, that I am not this person. So many run as generic Democrat, that I'm simply a generic Democrat. And we encourage and we work with our candidates in understanding these, what we call the 4 buckets. One, you have your identity. I'm LGBTQ. That's not a brand, that's an identity. Or in other people's cases, like Eddie or Joe Vogel we're working with, I'm Latino. That's an identity, that's not a brand. They have their biographies, their histories, their accomplishments. That's wonderful, that's not a brand. They have their positions. We're pro-choice, we believe in gun control, we care about the environment. That's wonderful, but those are positions. None of those 3 buckets are brand. Brand is the 4th bucket. And if a candidate doesn't develop a serious brand and know what their brand is and communicate their brand, they don't inspire. And brand is one of those values and attributes that make voters want to vote for me.
Well, this speaks to the fact that both of you have powerful histories in business around branding, for example, and now we're learning how your experience professionally translates into politics and to the support of these campaigns. So, Rich, what goes into that bucket of brand? What are examples of all right, that's brand?
Good question. And by the way, on our leadership team, we have 2 people, Francesca and Patrick, who are national brand experts. I mean, having branded organizations like Microsoft, like AT&T Wireless, like Bank of America, and so forth. And so they work very heavily on the branding side. If you think of brand in the simplest terms, it's what are the 5 positive words that I want people to immediately think and say when they hear the candidate's name. And if you can't come up with 5, then there is no brand. There should be 5, and I use the number 5 loosely, but a limited collection of words, terms that define who this person is, that inspires me. This person is a visionary. This person is trustworthy, honest. This person possesses empathy. This person is incredibly hardworking. What are those attributes, those values? And that defines brand. We have a wonderful little exercise, and I'll let Philip talk about that, relative to thinking about a candidate as a dog or as a car. And Philip, why don't you take that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fun one because like you talk to candidates and like ask them, what dog are you? And it sounds like a stupid question, right? But we had one candidate who like, we go through this exercise and I think, was he a border collie, Rich?
A border collie. He
Yeah,
finally concluded he was a border collie.
So border collie. It was like, okay, that tells you a lot about this candidate and what he stands for. Now do your opponent. And his opponent was a Pekingese. Also tells you a lot about who that candidate is and who they stand for. And then what we do is encourage them to consistent across all their marketing, all their mailers, all their advertisements, the way they reach out to voters. You have to solidify, you have to be the border collie, and you have to present her as the Pekingese. It's kind of, it sounds silly, but it's a powerful way for getting people to think about brand and also ensure that the brand is consistent across everything they do. Because that's what people will remember. They won't remember all your policy positions, but they'll remember what dog they made you feel like.
So that begs the question for both of you. Philip, what dog are you?
So I have a rescue Chihuahua who is like Chihuahua Jack Russell blend and a rescue. So she's neurotic cubed. I'm definitely not a Chihuahua, but I think I would probably be a pit bull.
Oh, okay.
A very nice one. A very nice, friendly, cute pit bull.
All right, and Rich?
Well, I too have a rescue Chihuahua, but I don't see myself as a Chihuahua. I would say I'm probably much more of a very sweet and well-trained Rottweiler.
Okay, so I don't have a pet, but I have bougainvillea on my patio, and I'm good when it's hot, and I can tolerate the winters. So.
And you have spikes.
Yes, exactly. The spike, yeah. So if you're just tuning in, I just want to let all of my viewers know that my guests are co-founders of the Ibis Group Institute. They're mentioning all these wonderful collaborators that they work with. They're all actually available at the website. So I encourage you to check it out. We have a lot more show to come. I am going to take a break, but before I do that, I want to just remind people that here we go. If you are watching live and you have a question or comment, I can curate it onto the screen. And I invite you to support this show for as little as $3 a month. Go to patreon.com/PromoHomo.TV. And as promised, a pair of tickets to the Red Dress Red party will be given out during the episode. To enter, you can't win on Facebook, you can't win on LinkedIn, you can't win on Twitter. You have to be on YouTube, logged into YouTube, and watching on YouTube. And after the break, I'm going to reveal the hashtag that you will type in on YouTube to be entered in the contest. And by the way, you only need to enter the hashtag once. You don't get extra chances if you enter it more than once, and that hashtag is coming up after the break. One of my supporters and viewers, he would be a Belgian, I don't know how to pronounce that. Malinois?
Malinois.
Malinois, and because he's very... Malinois. He's very loyal. So,
That's a
he's
good one.
certainly loyal in supporting this show. I'm very grateful. So, I'll be back with my guest after this. And this next spot, I created it and I use it as often as I can. And you're about to see why. This particular shirt is the crux of the Hopeful Sexual campaign, and it is designed to inspire authentic human connection while simultaneously combating sexuality-based shame and stigma. And the really cool thing is, if you go to hopefulsexual.com, it takes you to an Amazon store where this shirt is available in all sorts of styles, sizes, and colors. And I use the revenue to fund PromoHomo.TV. So check it out. I think almost everyone is a hopeful sexual, don't you? So, Rich and Philip, I don't have a sound effect for a drum machine, but I am going to reveal the hashtag for our viewers that they should type into the YouTube comments. This is the hashtag that you want to type into your comments if you're watching on YouTube. Hashtag RDDR2024 for Red Dress Red 2024. I'm giving away a pair of tickets before we end the show. If you have to be watching on YouTube, logged in on YouTube, and type that in the comments to win.
My red dress just arrived, and it's Amazon polyester, incredibly uncomfortable. But I will make it through the night, and I hope to meet whoever wins the competition.
Well, that would be great. And I'll be covering the event as I usually do. And I shared with you before the show, I'm very low maintenance. I'm wearing red sweats and a red and white baseball shirt with the PromoHomo.TV logo on it. Just putting this up as a reminder for people who are going to want to enter the contest. So there you have it. Consider yourself well informed, and I'm taking that off right now. So there's so much more we could talk about, but I want to sort of launch my next question in a different way. Just a second. Rock is talking about the dog. So it's the cousin of the German Shepherd. It's a group of herd dogs on farms and usually police dogs that are confused with German Shepherds. Rich, is there anything that you want to make sure that we talk about in this broadcast that we haven't got to yet?
Yes, and that is the critical component of data science in campaigns, and both Philip and I are very serious data scientists. That's what Philip does for a living today. His entire career is based today on the use of algorithms, AI, machine learning in understanding financial markets. And My company, I owned a company, a tech company. That's exactly what we did as well, is the use of algorithms and AI and machine learning in understanding consumer behavior and financial markets. Most campaigns do not use data science as a critical component of how they go to market. They don't understand how you use data, how you use it in terms of developing algorithms, in terms of predicting outcomes. And so that's a critical component of Ibis, and what we do is to bring that level of expertise. And how do you micro market? How do you communicate to people in very specific micro niches? How do you manage that whole process? How do you use a database, not just to get on the telephone and call people and hound them to vote, but in a way of understanding who they are, what are their issues, what might turn them on, and most importantly, how to predict outcomes. So many political campaigns do not have the capacity to predict the outcomes. Well, in the world of data science, that's what it's about. It's about predicting outcomes and understanding what are the key sets of variables that produce particular outcomes through the use of statistics, algorithms, and machine learning. And so we bring that to our candidates as well. And we believe that that's a critical component for saving democracy, is to move into the new world of technology and data science as an important tool. Philip?
Yeah, I would say, like, there's so much data out there, right? We create terabytes of data every second now. And like the tech industry and a lot of like corporate entities have been great at monetizing that data, using it to understand consumer behavior. Politics is almost entirely analogous. The candidate is the product, the voters are the market, and you can apply exactly the same techniques to politics, which is basically what Ibis's mission is in very simple terms. So a candidate comes to us. We begin by doing a lot of data analytics on them, their opponents, and their district. Let's say it's a new candidate, but is running against an incumbent. We can use, for example, precinct by precinct historic voter data that then gets mapped to sort of demographic information, maybe even consumer preference information. And we can tell you certain things about your opponent, right? They're very weak among Latinos under 35, or they have a special appeal to dog lovers. There's a whole load of things that you can do. Incidentally, by the way, one of the reasons the Trump campaign was so successful the first time around is that they illegally, but they worked with Cambridge Analytica, Brad Pascali, I don't know if you remember, to do absolute micro-targeting of voters that were easier to nudge to the Trump campaign, using sort of similar kind of techniques of like finding little like micro constituencies that were the most vulnerable and most persuadable with the messages that they gave, and they gave very micro-targeted messages. What's the
difference between doing something like that legally versus illegally?
You don't go to jail for doing it legally. But it's basically privacy laws. What the Trump campaign essentially was doing was using social media data that was set up to be used for charitable purposes and then using it for political campaigns. But it is possible, and it's sort of very easy to do, to get that kind of data that you are allowed to use for that usage. The reason campaigns don't do it is not because it's not allowed to do it, but the actual infrastructure to set it up, the technology required is a heavy lift. We would love to be able to see sort of the DCCC or some organization doing a very serious investment in this kind of sort of precinct by precinct, like voter data initiative, which could be great for sort of candidate persuasion, as well as sort of combating voter fraud type initiatives. It's something that I think we're likely to see in the future, and we'd love that to be invested in.
So both of you, I'm sure, know several people within the DNC. I would be surprised if that wasn't the case. Are you having conversations with them about this?
We are, and there are some conversations, but by and large, it does not trickle down to the campaigns. You see it much more on the presidential campaigns. Buttigieg's campaign, on which I worked, they had an entire team of data scientists who were working this, and so you see it at that level. But when you get down to a congressional campaign, there's none of that. Each congressional candidate is very much on his or her own. They got to figure it out, and they simply don't have the people who have the expertise to do that, and they certainly don't have the budgets to purchase, process, and analyze that data. And so, yes, you see it at the very top level, when it comes to presidential elections, but it does not trickle down. And one thing that is surprising is how much each individual candidate at the local level is on his or her own. And that's just not an area of expertise that candidates bring to the table, nor their campaign managers, nor their staffs. That's one of the critical reasons why we came into being, was to bring that to that more local level.
So just to remind our viewers again, ibisgroupinstitute.com. And, we've spoken about the history, purpose, intent of your organization, talking about the importance of data and science and deep diving into it to empower candidates. And of course, you've been wearing your hats as co-founders of this organization, but you're also individual human beings that have political lives that are beyond the scope of this organization. And I'd like to segue into that. I'd like to speak to you as proud and concerned Democrats that are looking at what we're looking at in our country. And we have polls out that, for example, on State of the Union this morning on CNN, they were talking about a poll in Georgia that has Trump 8 points ahead. Just one example, and we've seen the complete deterioration of the meaning of facts in our country. Where there's an immense polarization, the inclination to demonize people, which is not the solution. And I hate to ask the question, but what do you think would happen if Trump was reelected? Let's start with you, Rich.
Well, one, I think that would depend on where the House and the Senate are. I do think that will play a critical role in terms of determining what as horrible as it may sound, a Trump win might result in. So that's one reason why not only is it so important that we ensure that Trump doesn't win, but it's also so important that we ensure that the Senate and the House become overwhelmingly Democratic, because that will play a role in the process. Overall, it won't be good. I mean, we can all agree on that Trump's goal is not to build and maintain democracy. His goal is to destroy it. We know who he is. He has shown us again and again, and we can't expect anything else other than what he has told us he will do. And so it's something very frightening, and we have to wake up to that. Now, I will add one thing, though, if I may, and that is the reliance on polling data. As a researcher and as someone who's been in the research, analytics, polling, survey business for decades and decades, it's real important that we understand that the best way to predict behavior is not through polls. What people say they're going to do and what they do are two very different things. And that's why we so often find the polls to be wrong. They give us a hint as to what people are thinking today, but they don't necessarily predict behavior. And organizations like a Google, like when I was marketing director at Bank of America, do a better job of predicting behavior through algorithms and through machine learning than they do through polls. In a poll, sure, I'm going to lose 10 pounds this year, but I don't. Sure, I'm going to clean up my room, but I don't. sure, we'll all quit smoking. I don't smoke, by the way, but we don't. And so what we say we're going to do in the survey and then what we wind up doing can often be two very different things. And so we have to be very careful when we look at these polls, because all they are is an indication of what someone thinks and hopes they might do at a point in time. Instead, and that's something that Philip and I spend a lot of time talking about, is how do we model behavior? How do we develop algorithms that tell us how people will vote that are far better than simply asking them? Because often asking them does not give us the right answer. So I do say be careful of what polls show. They have shown again and again. Often they are not correct now. And so we have to be careful about relying too heavily on the polls. Philip?
I mean, if you ask me for a prediction, I don't think Trump is going to win again. If you're asking me what that would mean, I think it would be catastrophic. I mean, I love America. I chose to come here. I'm originally from England. I would worry about what it would happen to our institutions, what it would happen to democracy. You can see the things that they have lined up to do basically on day one. He's going to be a dictator on day one. He's already said it. We should take him seriously. But there is an organized force to sort of put Trump loyalists into positions in almost all institutions and essentially sort of rot them from the inside out. I luckily have a British passport and have the option to go back, but I think we have to take it very seriously. And one of the things that worries Rich and I is that, like, if the Republican Party continues to become an autocratic party, which it appears to be, Mitch McConnell endorsed Trump the other day. He did not have to do that. He's about to die. He's like, he could have done the right thing. Like, Democrats can't solve this on their own. Like, the solution cannot be that Democrats just keep winning every single election or we turn into a dictatorship. So what do we have to do? I think we do need structural reform. Things like trying to eliminate excessive gerrymandering. Let's see what we can do, bring back the filibuster. Let's see what we can do with courts, plus a whole load of other things like cybersecurity. We cannot have Russia or bad actors sort of pushing propaganda in the US to the extent that they were. Some kind of regulation of sort of tech companies and media. We sort of an expansion of multinational sort of organizations. Trump wants to pull out of NATO. He's like, there's all kinds of things. We need a concerted effort, not just to keep winning elections, but create a pro-democracy caucus that involves the good Republicans, as many Democrats as possible, to take this incredibly seriously and like rebuild these like institutional structures which Trump tried to tear down last time and we haven't sufficiently built back up.
And I think that's key, if I may, which is Democrats cannot do it alone. We have to begin to expand our tent to include independents and to include those moderate Republicans, not demonize them, welcome them. That we have to not think in terms of Democrat versus Republican, but pro-democracy versus fascists. And we really have to begin to think in those terms, that we're on the pro-democracy team. And we welcome anyone who supports that. And that's a different kind of culture that we have to create.
Well, with that said, I'm going to ask you a question that I want you to think about because I'm going to do the drawing. The question is, what specific action can viewers of this program take? So that's your question. I'm bringing up the drawing, and I'm going to do it right now. But I'm really surprised because I'm the only one who entered, and I did double check to make sure that it was working by commenting myself into the remarks. So I'm the only person that entered the contest, which I find surprising. But the good news is I now have an extra pair of red dress red party tickets that I can do with whatever I want. And I'll have to give that some thought. I just didn't know it. So I just want to say to both of you, I'm really honored that you chose to be on my show. And I really have great admiration for anybody that is involved in making a difference with their lives in any way they choose and manage to do that. We are all in this together, and count me on your team. And anyone that's watching that have been inspired to do so because of your presence on the show, count me on your team. Use me to help all of us win. With that said, Rich and then Philip, what specific action can viewers take?
Number one, vote. Number two, inspire everyone you know to vote. And number three, engage. Find an organization, find a candidate, find something that engages you. Politics should not be something that's passive. It's something that's active. And there isn't one organization or one activity that I would recommend, but rather whichever organization, activity, candidate turns you on, do it and make it an important part of your life between now and November. Don't sit on the sidelines.
Philip?
I think number one, talk to young people. Like, we need the next generation to care about democracy as much as we do and to realize its importance. So talk to the young people in your life about the importance of civics, the importance of voting, the history of what happens when democracy isn't as strong as it is now. I think a lot of young people have forgotten that. Number two, I would say, reach out to people you know who think differently from you. I think the person who isn't a registered Democrat, who is an independent or is a Republican who doesn't like Trump, is a never Trumper, but maybe couldn't see themselves voting for a Democrat, and understand. I think, like, long answer to your question, but I think one of the things we've seen is that traditional communities have broken down a little bit. And now we have people who get identity out of their political affiliation. I am a Republican, I am a Democrat. Historically, those same people would go to the same church, or their kids would be on the same baseball team, and there would be more community organizations where people didn't feel such a strong identity and sense of self with their party. I'd encourage people, like, it's a slow process, but try and break down some of those ideological barriers with ulterior motives that we want to turn them to our side, but please do it.
Okay, then. So for my viewers at home, you have been watching the Snowstorm, which I hope will become the quintessential go-to LGBTQ plus Sunday show. For more information about the good work of my guests, go to Ibis Institute.com. If you want to pitch guests for this show, go to PromoHomo.TV, and the submenu is a button that says Pitching Guest. It tells you how to do that. Or you can reach out to your good buddies Rich and Philip and ask them to connect you directly with me via email, because, you know, we have a lot of work to do and we're going to do it together. Thank you, gentlemen. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you all next week.
In a safe place, I got room to breathe. Been a long chase, but at last I'm free. These open woods, I knew I could find peace here. Nothing like the city where I got tired of the running, the catching up. I got hungry for the stunning high mountain tops. Some dreams to catch, to promised lands, to find my path, see the planet from greater heights. I have found a place out of time and space, far from city lights. blue sky, feel the wind